Hello, welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Well, folks, we're in the home stretch. I'm going to say we are very close to Election Day. We're just 27 short days until November 5th, and so less than a month ago. We need everyone pitching in. We're going to give you some of the news you need to motivate you, to get you working, to help turn Kentucky purple. We've got a couple of interesting stories. One, going to cover our shero getting her flowers. Then we're going to discuss, interesting bipartisan leadership potentially out of Frankfurt around gun safety. Then we're going to meet up with Aaron Currin, who's running for the 84th House District. We want to hear about his race, which could be competitive and really could be an important pickup for the Democrats if you wanted to see them expand their super minority into just a minority. Then we're really, really excited to be bringing back Representative Lindsey Burke from here in Lexington. She's in Lexington. We're going to discuss with her abortion access in the legislature, how abortion really is on the ballot in November if you kind of connect the correct dots. And then we're going to wrap up with an urgent call to action. So before we get into it, though, we're glad you're here. We're glad you are committed, along with us, to helping turn Kentucky purple, because we desperately need better electoral outcomes in our Commonwealth. The rogues gallery of Republicans that trash our state's reputation each time they open their mouth. Mitch McConnell, Jamie Comer, Big Banks, Andy Barr, and the entire GOP supermajority in the General Assembly. So they block our governor from doing good work for our Commonwealth time and time again. We need better, which means we need to get better electoral outcomes, right? Because every once in a while we come together and we do the right stuff. We rejected Amendment 2, Classic Amendment 2, to keep abortion protections in our state constitution for all the good that did us. We reelected Andy, and that's like a big victory for our state for sure. But there's more we need to do. We need to reject Amendment 2 again. Different Amendment 2, different subject matter, same jerks putting it on the legislature, on the ballot for us. And we need your help to be as effective as possible. I don't know if you saw it. We have a phenomenal interview we did with the author of The Privateers, which is a kind of well-researched book about how vouchers fail to bring about better electoral or better education outcomes for kids. And it really is just a giveaway to folks who already send their kids to private schools rather. Sorry. Really, it's a great interview. We've got an ad right now up on social media. We would like to extend that ad and run it, for the next 27 days. We would like to make sure everywhere you turn online, you can see it, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or wherever, because it's a really informative interview. But we need money to do that. So I hope you make a contribution right now via our secure online website. Act Blue to help turn Kentucky purple. $5, $50, $500. It all adds up. None of it's tax deductible, but it's all very useful for our needs. So please consider doing that so we can push out the right information so folks can make the right decisions again on November 5th. So let's now check in with our co-hosts. Let us know who you are, where you are. What's your protest sign say today? So I'm Aaron, coming to you from Lexington. Yes, Lexington, the community of Childsburg, just on the outskirts, right before you hit the growth boundary. Lots of beige siding out here, folks. But what does my protest sign say today? It says, hey, General Assembly, stay out of exam rooms. That's what I'm protesting. It's just their general instincts to get in the middle of health decisions. All right. Hey, Chris, I see you there. Where are you, and what is your protest sign to say?
Hey, everybody. I am in Berea, Kentucky, and my protest sign says, go canvass. The election is right around the corner, and there are so many different things that you could be out canvassing about, whether, to get a elected official in or to protest against Amendment 2. Just so many things. So, find a cause or someone to root for, or someone to root against. Whatever gets your feet on the concrete and at people's doors, do that.
Nice. Get your feet on the concrete. Love myself a little rhyme there. That rhyme there. Fantastic work. All right, Kim. Kim, here you are. Where are you? What are you protesting?
Yes, I am in Jefferson County, the largest county in Kentucky, also known as the home of the Kentucky Derby, and also, unfortunately, the home of Breonna Taylor. And that brings me into what my protest sign says today: women's rights are human rights.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's do before we get to our guests, let's go ahead and get into the news of the week. So we have some news. We got some good news. We got some. It's actually kind of all positive. Shocking. So the first story we wanted to cover. Y'all know we are huge fans of Hadley Duvall. She has been on this show a couple of times, which we're really grateful for. She has gotten a ton of attention for her amazingly powerful advocacy in support of survivors. You know, as a survivor of rape, somebody who has fought for women's healthcare options. You know, I would say besides Andy is the person most responsible for sending Dan Cameron packing. Really powerful ad there for that race. Very powerful ads now for the national race. Spoke at the DNC. On the I think second anniversary of Roe being overturned, she was being interviewed on MSNBC with Vice President Harris, who was not the nominee at that point. And that was cut ads for the Harris campaign, and really just super powerful, amazing activist, kind of goes wherever she's needed to help tell her story and empower women. So we were really thrilled that Glamour magazine has made her one of their Women of the Year. And along with a woman from Louisiana who's got a kind of another story of how important women's healthcare options are, and these states that are being blocked from having those healthcare options. So yeah, it's I'm just thrilled to see Hadley coming to such prominence and getting such important recognition for the important work that she's doing. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think she's absolutely wonderful. I think she's an excellent person to represent women, especially our young women. She really touches your heart when she speaks. Her sincerity and her perseverance and her strength has made her into the young lady that she is today. And I'm so very, very proud of her. And I think she got the award from Glamour that she absolutely deserved.
Yeah, and how cool! She got the red carpet treatment in New York, and got to I don't know, get the attention and accolades. So cool, right? So cool, because I think she's certainly not doing it for that type of acknowledgement or recognition or star turns, but that she got that is so awesome. I'm so glad that she did. Chris?
It is. Yeah, it is great. I just want to echo what Kimberly said. She has a story that really touches you, and she tells it in a very profound way. And so and it is astonishing for somebody to have the guts to be out there and tell that story. And so good on her for being able to tell that story and really move the narrative politically forward.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's so interesting, right? So the transformation of that issue since Roe, right? I just keep thinking back to so there's support for this issue. I think Roe captured people's attention. It made people realize how this was really truly at risk. But I think for years before that, people were just they didn't want to talk about it, right? They didn't want to put it front and center. They didn't want to talk about how it was a threat. Meanwhile, this whole right-wing apparatus has been grown and funded by these nut job billionaires, and grown and grown and grown in its power and its ability, till, they own the Supreme Court, right? And now that, this next election could have, such long-term repercussions for our ability to change what comes out of that Supreme Court, right? Because you got two fairly old Republican, clearly Republican Supreme Court justices who I'm sure, under a Trump administration would retire, and then they would, appoint somebody 35 years old who's got the Heritage Foundation or whoever, approval, right? So we would have just these durable majorities for a very, very, very long time. So just, terrifying. But, this issue has captured the nation's attention. I think it's sad that we weren't talking about it more before, right? It was just like always this thing we kind of like, it's good that we have it, but we're not going to talk about how it's really under threat until now it's gone, right? If you think about it, the reason Amendment 2, the classic Amendment 2, was on the ballot is because I think they wanted something to drive turnout for that election. And they thought that Kentucky would, come out strongly against abortion access. But in the intervening, between when they voted to put it on the ballot and by the time it actually showed up on the ballot is when Roe was overturned, and they were the cat, the dog that caught the car or whatever. And like, what the heck do we do now? And, that's when the public, shit, we've got to come for it. And, like I said earlier in our opening, like for all the good it did us, right? And we'll get into that later. But, Kentucky voters surprised the world to some degree and came out opposed to, reducing abortion access. And, that just, if you can win on it in Kentucky, you can win on it anywhere. And obviously that, stories like Hadley's, I think, really empower people to, see what's at stake and come out strongly. So anyway, really, really proud of her, thrilled that, she's getting the accolades that she very much deserves. All right, so I think we got another good story, interesting story coming to us from Frankfurt, from Chris Priest.
Yeah, so a little bit of bipartisanship. How about that? So there is a bill by Representative Banta and is co-sponsored by Representative Bojanowski. Correct me if I said that wrong. Who's co-sponsoring it. And it is a bill that will make parents civilly liable for what their children do. Now, this is mainly targeting firearms. So if you have a child who gets a firearm and say it's yours, and you just let them have it to go run and do things, then you could find yourself liable. One of the quotes from Bojanowski is, the proposal is that a parent is responsible civilly for any gun violence that their child under 18 years old would go through. And some of the things in the bill, they permitted them. So the bill says parents and other guardians would be considered responsible and subject to paying civil damages under the circumstances that they permitted the minor to have the firearm. They know that the minor has previously been adjudicated delinquent for an offense that would be a felony if the minor had been an adult. They know that the minor has a propensity to commit violent acts, and they know or have reason to know that the minor intends to use the firearm for unlawful purposes. I also see in the article that that this kind of also expands to graffiti. So if the child has a driver's license and you let them go out and they go and do some damage through graffiti, that the parents could be civilly liable. I find this bill very interesting. One, because it's bipartisan, but also, like, we don't see much happening on the gun front other than, let them reign, which the Republicans have had that stance for a very long time. They just keep doing that. So this is a little bit of going in the opposite direction, trying to get people to be more responsible with their guns. So at least for people under 18. What do you guys think about some of the stipulations that they put in here? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a step forward, right? Some way of holding people accountable for, using their guns in a, irresponsible fashion. So seems like, I think some of the ideas about, gun ownership in the past, like, maybe that people would have to have insurance for their guns or things of that nature, right? Like you have to have insurance for a car because, similarly can bring about very significant impacts to, to community members. I think this is seems to me like a step forward, and glad to see some bipartisan engagement and bipartisan leadership on this space for sure. We'll see how it proceeds and what happens. My hunch is that the kind of reflexive gun protective legislature isn't going to let this even get a hearing, but we'll see. I don't know. Kim, what do you think?
Well, I know that here in Kentucky, we do have a truancy law. When a child, I was just looking over it for memory purposes, but school must report students with 15 or more unexcused absences. However, there is a diversion program before the parent will actually be in trouble. Okay. And the parents are responsible for keeping their kids in school. And the consequences could be a parent could face a misdemeanor and up to a year in jail if their child continues to be truant. And that means not showing up for class. I don't know if that really makes parents want to really get their children in school. And things are so much different now. We're living in a time when it comes to who's going to be the most, what class of people are going to be disproportionately singled out in this law. You have a few, mass shooters that may be of a certain hue, but for the everyday gunfires that's going on, especially here in Louisville, 30% of the crimes here in Louisville are committed by gangs. There is a definite gang problem here. So is that really going to help a parent, that single mother that's working 2 or 3 jobs to keep food on the table, and her high school son is a lot, back in the day we would wear the chain with the key on it when we were young. We could let ourselves into the house. What they call us? Lock key kids. I'm Generation X. Like, we had it rough. Generation X, we had it rough, okay? I'm like in the 3rd grade, like in the house by myself, right? But it's a different time now. And I don't know if that's going to basically deter what's already happening. I think it's a great beginning step, but I also believe that there needs to be some other components in there. If my child, thank God they're grown, but if one of my children would go out and use a gun, all these type of things, then they come to me. What happens when I'm that single mom that's working all the time or trying to go to school? I'm trying to take care of my kids as best I can. Maybe there's some other avenues that need to happen. Maybe there needs to be what we have with the truancy, Kentucky law, truancy. We have a diversion program. Is there anything like that in the bill that, before we just go lock up a parent because your child used a gun that you knew nothing about? Is there some type of program?
Well, I think it's civilly liable, right? So it's not criminally liable. So you're not going to go to jail. I think it's going to be civil means like you're gonna be on the hook.
And civil means money, right?
Yeah. So
So
I don't know. I think it's interesting. Like, I'm gonna go back to my original position on this, which let's watch it and see if it goes anywhere under this, GOP super duper majority. But maybe it gets brought forward in a legislature that looks a little bit different. So speaking of which, we need to move on to our first guest. We're going to go to the campaign corner. Really excited to talk to Aaron Currin, who is currently running for the 65th district. So we're going to have him on. He's going to tell us where the 65th district is and a little bit about himself and why he's running. So very excited to be joined right now by Aaron Currin. Aaron, how are you?
Good. How are you this evening?
Doing all right. I don't have any complaints really that you're going to want to hear for sure. So yeah, you're on the campaign trail. You've thrown your hat in the ring.
Yes.
You are out there, taking a minute from knocking doors to talk to us. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what are you telling people at the door about yourself and why you want this seat?
So first of all, I'm actually, I'm a product of the 65th House District. I was born in Fort Wright, raised in Edgewood, went to grade school in Edgewood at St. Pius, went to high school at Covington Catholic in Park Hills. I was a public defender for 17 years, which was in Covington. And now I'm a practicing lawyer and opened up my practice down in Covington. So I have, out of the 5 cities in this district, I've basically got deep roots in each one of them for most of my life. So that's one of the reasons I'm running. I believe that up here specifically, Governor Beshear did really well. For the longest time, it's been largely run by Republicans, and we've had a lot of Republican representation with the exception of Representative Wheatley as well as Representative Simpson prior. And with the redistricting, I think it's actually provided a great opportunity for us to flip a seat that has historically, been Covington based, but now is going into the suburbs. So.
Yeah, you are. And we looked at this, we did an analysis of House districts, and those that were kind of won by Governor Beshear, but were represented by a Republican. And this was, in the top 6 of those seats. Mm-hmm. So really excited to see you there. Excited to see you doing the work, running against, I think, Stephanie Dietz. I don't know why is Stephanie Dietz not the right representative for this district?
So I think, first of all, we had the abortion amendment 3 years ago, and the district and the county, for that matter, went against it. So they went in favor of it. They voted in favor of protection of abortion rights. And one of the things I found while I'm on the campaign trail, and actually as a public defender, one of the things that's been frustrating to me is when government officials, do not necessarily listen to the will of the people that are their constituents, and that's been one of the things that's been frustrating. Historically, this has been a very Republican area, but it's always been kind of that moderate Republican, and so it's always kind of been 55-45, give or take. And so, especially with the rightward shift of the Republican Party, I think a lot of these seemingly moderate Republicans it's becoming more and more difficult for them to represent purple districts. And so I, as a product of the 65th, I've lived in this community most of my life. And although I'm a strong supporter of the Beshear administration and his policies, I also understand that most of my neighbors and friends are largely Republican and a little center right. So I've kind of lived in that world where I think that we need someone that understands both sides of that has a little bit more independence to be able to kind of, make decisions that are consistent with what their constituents want.
That totally makes sense. Chris or Kim, any questions for Aaron?
So in regards to
how can someone get in touch with you to help with your campaign?
So yeah, my website is currinforky.com. That all the information's on there. You can get the Facebook links and everything on there. So that would be where you'd contact my information on there. So.
Okay, we'll put that website up on the screen in a second, Annabelle. Right there it is. And Chris, I think you had a question as well.
Yeah, what are you doing to activate and reach out to younger voters?
Well, I think one of the things that's actually provided an opportunity for this is this was historically this was a district that's been held by Democrats for 100 years. Prior to Representative Dietz taking the seat in 2022, and I think the margin was like 283 votes. And with the redistricting, it's actually opened up new avenues for us on there. So it allows us to talk to different people that we've not previously had the opportunity to talk to because it's been so balkanized up here. So one of the things I think when I started running, we just decided that we're just going to go and talk to as many people as possible. And so we've knocked about almost 8,400 doors. And so just going in and talking to people, especially down in Covington, you have a much younger, in some respects, a younger group of people. Talking to them, just walking around, talking to them and meeting them, you have a really good opportunity to kind of get an idea of where they're at. One of the things that's been the takeaway from this is the fact that when I first started, people were a little cold, not cold, but difficult to kind of talk to because it's been so one-sided for so long. And then as you go back and do a second and third pass on some of these communities, people are much more willing to come out. And I find myself, we've had like backyard meetings in cities and neighborhoods and just invited the neighbors in. And I've had these little quick town halls just in driveways talking to people on the streets when we've been in areas that we've never been in. So I think that's been really helpful.
That's awesome. All right. So yeah, Currin for Kentucky, check it out. Go to the website. You can, go up to Northern Kentucky and, spend some time knocking doors. One thing that, just to point out, Aaron, I think, so the Amendment 2, original classic Amendment 2 was, not last year because that was Andy's election. It was the year before, right? And Amendment 2 was
2021, I think.
So I think it was one where, and the vote for, if you were voting for Amendment 2, that was to remove all protection for abortion from the state constitution, right? So we rejected Amendment 2, and we hopefully will reject this other Amendment 2. So yeah, any thoughts about the current Amendment 2? What do you think about vouchers and a voucher program in Kentucky?
So, I mean, I'm against. I think we should keep public money in public schools. My district's actually really interesting because a lot like Louisville, my district has 2 high schools and about 6 or 7 Catholic schools, 2 Catholic high schools and about 6 or 7 Catholic. Well, there's at least, 5 of them that are in my district. So there's a lot of people that have an interest in the private schools, but even in those communities, I think a lot of them are still against the amendment. They believe that public money should stay in public schools. I know a lot of the people inside the churches, the Catholic churches, which have a lot of pull up here, I know they're in favor of it, but I kind of thought that it was going to be a little bit more, even on that, but it still seems like people are still pretty opposed to it. But we don't know, so I think that there's been a push against it. So I think it might not be as overwhelming as other counties, but I think it still will fail up here, but you never know.
Yeah. And then you personally, obviously you're opposed to it. The First Amendment too. So what would you say about, what do you want to do about abortion access in the state of Kentucky if you get to Frankfort?
Well, I mean, I think especially with abortion access, I mean, I think that was when they did the trigger law back in 2019, I believe that's kind of where the state of the law is. I believe that a choice of healthcare should be between the woman, the mother, and the doctor. And that's what we should be doing. We should be doing everything on that. So I would be supportive of any bill on that. I think one of the things that I'm focused on when I get to Frankfort is that on a lot of these things, the reason why a lot of these bad policies, not bad policies, but I think the bad policies, but some of these policies that are against the wills of the constituents and their people kind of are able to kind of exist because there's a lot of misinformation and not a lot of talking about what the bill does and having a discussion about that. We're having a lot of times discussion on procedure, like specifically like nationally, where people say, I'm not necessarily opposed to abortion. I just believe it's an issue reserved for the states. Like those types of things are discussions that we have to get past to kind of start addressing the issues. And that's one of the things I want to do is really kind of start talking about the issues as opposed to like the procedures and a lot of the things behind it. Because I think once you do that, once you kind of remove those, a lot of people are in favor of a lot of the Democratic policies, right? It's just kind of cutting through a lot of that red tape, so to speak. Once you kind of start talking about the issues, they're largely popular, So I'm having those conversations with people.
Well, thanks again for joining us on Kernels of Truth. Thank you so much for your candidacy and getting out there and knocking doors. It always just does my heart good to like hear about candidates actually knocking doors in the district. A really important way to get a sense of what your district actually wants and let them meet you. So good luck in the next 27 days, making the most of those to get fight your way to Frankfort.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
Sure thing. Aaron Currin, candidate for the 65th State House District, Northern Kentucky. Really, a great public-minded public servant, wants to continue to do important work for our Commonwealth after being a prosecutor there. All right, so now we're going to roll into our primary interview for the evening. Really excited to have back on the show Representative Lindsey Burke, who doesn't have the frantic 27 days because she doesn't actually have an opponent for her race. So she's reelected, which is awesome. But she's also an expert on, I think, abortion issues in Frankfort. She's one of the leaders that brought about the Momnibus, one of the big victories, bipartisan victories of the last session. So we're always thrilled to have Representative Burke join us on the show. Representative Burke, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's always wonderful to be with you all.
Yeah, well, I think you just heard from Aaron Currin, who's running in what can be a very, very tight district up in Northern Kentucky. What's your prognosis? What do you think is going to happen in the State House in 28 days? What do we think is going to happen?
I'm going to go with an optimistic +3 for the Democrats.
+3. So you think we'll get 3 pickups?
I think we can get 3 pickups. I'm really excited about the races here in Lexington. I'm excited about what's going on in Louisville and Northern Kentucky too. We have excellent candidates all over the state, and they're really putting in the work. It is so encouraging to see everybody getting out there and doing their thing. But I'm also really happy with the way that the House Democrats have worked together to provide support to candidates that wasn't there just a year or two ago. We've been able to provide strategy support. We're providing messaging support. We're providing funding, all things that weren't there before. And it's because of the House Democrat leaders who have really tried to put together the infrastructure we need to pick up seats. So I'm really excited, and I can't wait to see us move in the right direction.
Very cool. Yeah, I would like to see a bigger number than 3, but I appreciate a modest but positive outlook on that one. All right, so yeah, you don't have a race. A lot of these districts don't have races because they've been gerrymandered to such a point. Like there's the fact that you've got a super majority in Frankfort for the Republicans, in a state that Andy won, fairly convincingly for a Democrat in this red state, but that's those are the number of toss-up seats. It's kind of astounding to me, and it's very clear they did a very good job protecting their interests in the redistricting process. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And on some level, it's a real shame. I think we spent too much time and money fighting that redistricting because, frankly, it was evil genius level. I mean, I hate to even give them that much credit.
Where's a genius? Where is a genius in that crew? Show me a genius.
I mean, there are like half of them, meaning like 0.5 of one person. But no, they threaded the needle of how to do it legally in a frustrating, successful way. And so I think we really threw a lot of time and money at litigating something that we weren't likely to win. And I really wish that we had been able to dedicate that funding a couple of years ago to winning the seats back, because we've just started that. And if we had started a year ago, we'd be a year ahead of where we are today. So unfortunately, the redistricting, gerrymandering, I mean, that was a major assault on representative democracy, but they did it in such a way where we didn't have a great legal argument to fight it. With the Voting Rights Act being gutted, it's really hard it's really hard to make the case anymore that people aren't being represented, because there's just not a whole lot of statutory and case law that's up to date. So glad to welcome Archie's. Yeah, I just
talked about the legal opinions there. I'm sure.
Yeah, well, he did go to law school, you know.
Yeah. You brought him along. All right. So, all right. And I'm going to throw it to my co-host for the next question. But, we want to bring you on to talk about abortion because obviously it's as you heard my opening, it's a huge issue. It's an issue that Kentucky came out for. We rejected Amendment 2. So obviously we must have a constitutional protection for abortion because that's what the voters very clearly said they wanted. What's the status in our state, right? What's going on right now?
Well, the good news is that people still care. The voters still care. And I'm hopeful that that means that when they show up for the elections that are just 3.5 weeks away, that they're going to vote for candidates who are very loud and clear about their message, that reproduction is a personal matter. Access to reproductive care and abortion is a personal matter. And these are not things that we need the government to intrude upon. So we need people to back up out of the doctor's office and let us handle our own business without interfering. And there are candidates up and down the ballot for the state house who are presenting that message clearly and loudly. I'm very grateful for Colleen Davis. I'm grateful for Adam Moore. These are people who are out there at the doors, making sure that people know that's where they stand. And then we've also got to think about the Kentucky Supreme Court. I mean, we're going to elect a justice to the Supreme Court, and we have the opportunity to elect someone who is pro-choice with just Judge Goodwine, or someone who's not. And when it comes down to it, the changes we will see in abortion access in Kentucky are going to be coming from the Kentucky Supreme Court before they come from the legislature. I don't think the body is strong enough at this moment to pick up some of the bills that have been proposed, like my North Star bill, which is just a rollback to Roe. I don't think we're going to do that. I don't think we're going to do any of the blow them wide exceptions. And I don't think we're even going to take up some of the bad exceptions bills, like the one from Ken Fleming. I just don't think there's any appetite in the legislature. So voters really need to be tuned in on making sure we get more pro-choice people in the House and also pro-choice justices on the Supreme Court.
Yeah. So, we can talk about the Judge Goodwin race in a moment, but I want to see if my co-host had any questions for you, sticking on the subject matter and kind of what's happening in Frankfort. Kim or Chris?
Kim, you want to
go? Thank you. I go. I was just trying to be, nice today, which is unusual. And plus, I have brand new internet. I got Wi-Fi, y'all. Okay, I'm not cutting out like I normally do. Woo, woo, woo. But Representative Burke, just really proud of you being in the House the way that you have. As a freshman, so to speak, and you're making such headways. We need more like you. To get things done,
Thank you.
With these situations about, a woman's right to make the decision for her body, it's pretty hard when we have to depend upon other people to make decisions for our bodies. I am over the age of childbearing years, thank God, but I will say this to you. Do you think sometimes that we put that in the forefront so much and it's so incredibly important and other people don't really understand, like we understand, being a little bit more political, savvy, so to speak? What do you say to some of those women and men that's like, person can have an abortion. I really don't care. I want to know about the economics. I want to know about this or that. Like, what do you say to those type of people? And I'm just bringing that up because I've had some people say some things like that to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important question, Kimberly. And I think that's one of the really awesome and challenging things about being a political figure is that you really need to be able to engage with these different topics and not only just be able to lay your heart on the line and say, I really care about women's health care, but to also say, okay, well, here's an economic policy that I think would benefit Kentucky. I think we need to increase income taxes. And here's why. When we have money to fund programs, we have the ability to make our schools better, to pay our teachers more, to give more people access to good, healthy food. We have the ability to grow our economy. And we need to make sure that we're able to articulate all the other things that people want to know. But the reason we're hearing so much about abortion right now is, frankly, that's what won Andy Beshear's reelection. When the polling was done, that was the thing that brought the moderate folks over to the Democratic Party for this single election. And I hope it's not just a single election and we can continue that momentum. But this is one of those watershed moments. We've taken something that was so well established, something that probably your grandmother and my grandmother were fighting for, and we thought that it was settled. And now here we are going, oh my God, what happened? And we have to do something now, because the longer we fail to address it, the longer we stay in this new normal where women die because they're having a miscarriage and they can't get treatment, that starts to become acceptable. You know, these women's deaths start to become acceptable because we let them be acceptable by doing nothing. And so we have to seize this moment and fight hard. And it may be uncomfortable for people. There may be people who are just really cringy about talking about abortion, and that's okay. Not everybody understands, and there are no things in the world that everybody understands. So that's okay. But we can't stop banging this drum loudly because women are dying. I just can't sit still and be quiet about it.
One of my closest friends back in the day, I don't think I was born yet because I'm only 25, but I wish. But her sister died in Paducah from one of those, what they call a back alley abortion. And we cannot go back to that. We cannot go back.
Absolutely not. And that situation is tragic. And the women who are dying because they don't have any access is just as tragic. And we were talking about Georgia earlier. Women are dying in Georgia. You know, they're not just one of them, but several women now have died because they don't have access to the care they need. And I don't want that happening in Kentucky. So I'm going to keep being loud. I'm going to keep being out there. I'm going to keep talking about it, no matter how uncomfortable it makes anybody, because this is a life-saving issue.
Absolutely.
That's why we love you. See, right there.
doing the hard work, you know, but also at the same time, and I love this about you as well, like figuring out strategically where you can, you know, make some gains from a bipartisan perspective. You know, the Momnibus was such, I think, an important, you know, package of bills doing useful things for, you know, maternal health in a state that desperately needs gains in that area. You know, tell us a little bit about, you know, your approach to that and like how, you know, kind of how you made it happen. And, you know, do you have similar kind of any, you know, other ideas for good bipartisan efforts in the next legislature?
Well, it is completely not fair to say I made it happen.
It was all you, 100% you, 100% you. Don't worry, no one else watches this show.
No, that's totally not fair to say. And I want to give credit where credit's due, because Representative Mosier, she was the spearhead and she's the person who got that over the line. But it was a concerted effort from a lot of lawmakers. Representative Sarah Stalker and I started talking about the Momnibus early last summer, so about roughly 18 months ago. I pushed her to share her bill with Representative Mosier that became one half of the Momnibus. They met all summer while I was on maternity leave. So there was a series of meetings that I was not a part of, where different women from both parties were at the table talking about making good policy and trying to do productive work around maternal health. When I came back from maternity leave, I joined in the conversation and was just really proud to support what they were doing. Once we got to session, though, as always happens, it gets closer and closer to the end, and there is a frantic effort to get as much done as you can, and sometimes that involves what they call a Christmas tree approach, where you put all the ornaments on one tree, even if they don't necessarily go together. Basically a really unhelpful anti-choice bill got strapped to the Momnibus at the last minute. And I think my biggest contribution was in my strategic opposition of that addition, working with both the House and Senate to use procedure to defeat the joining of that bill. So I'm very proud that we managed to get through a clean original version of the Momnibus that did all the good work without any of the detrimental side effects, so to speak. And I know that Representative Mosier and some of the Republican women who supported that bill have gotten a lot of flack for doing that. I've heard, although I don't totally believe it, that Democrats gave the Republican women a hard time. Frankly, I don't believe that. But I do believe that the most conservative women gave the moderate Republican women a hard time, to the point where I'm afraid that the appetite for bipartisan legislation is probably pretty weak for this next session, at least around these kinds of issues. There may be some bipartisan stuff about diabetes or, good roads, very benign, non-partisan stuff. But it's going to be a while, I think, before the powerful Republicans come back to the table to do good work like this. And I just hope that they will come back soon and not make us wait a real long time.
One question. So, I don't know if you heard earlier, we were talking about the civil liability bill that had been introduced by a bipartisan group, and I wanted to get your take on that. Whether you think that's something that is valuable and is one that or maybe what you just mentioned is a kind of reflection of it. Like, is it gonna go anywhere because it's not maybe not the right bipartisan powerful pair that's working on it? But what do you think on the bill?
I'm very excited about that bill. I think it's a fantastic bill. I'm thrilled to see Representative Bojanowski and Banta working on that. I think they are a really powerful duo, and between Northern Kentucky and Louisville, their respective locations, they bring a lot of people power to the mix. So that's a strong coalition, and I wouldn't put anything past those two women. That being said, gun rights are a third rail in Kentucky. And so I think best case scenario, that bill gets a hearing. I think that's optimistic. And I would not be expecting it to pass this session. especially since we couldn't get the car bill over the hump with Senator Westerfield on his way out the door and all the powerful folks who are supporting and believing in that car bill. So I'm interested and supportive of the parental liability for providing access to firearms for situations where you should have known your child was potentially a risk of harm to others. But I don't expect it to get there this time.
Yeah. And we'd seen in the comments, Kathy Hobart-Spicer singing your praises as well. Obviously, the car bill was what we had her on a month ago, maybe, right in the kind of the wake of that 75 shooting. And like, hey, wouldn't it have been great if we had a car bill, right? And whether she thought that would be enough to kind of get folks moving forward. And she was, I think similarly sanguine about what's going to happen in the legislature on these types of tough issues where there's just such calcified opposition. It's part of their ideology, right? So, all right. Well, any final questions from our co-host, Kim or Chris?
Yeah. So, you being in the awesome position of not having to run against a Republican, how are you strategically planning your time to help some colleagues that are in pretty tight seats?
Well, I have been spending my time and my resources in supporting incumbents who have tight races, and also some of the newcomers who have tight races. There are seats that we can pick up, but there are definitely seats we need to hold. We cannot afford to lose Sherilyn Stevenson. I think that's our number one, gotta keep tightest race. So, Rachel Rourke's in Louisville is another one of those incumbents that we desperately need to keep. And so I've been trying to contribute to her in small dollar amounts, but regularly to keep her going so that she's able to secure her seat again. This is a tough time. I'm also making sure that my district turns out in every way I can. And I'm doing that with a lot of conversations about voting no on 2, because people really are motivated to make sure that our public dollars stay in public schools. And my district really cares about that. So I want them to show up at the polls and vote, vote their conscience, but vote no on 2 and vote for Kamala Harris and vote for Justice Goodwine and, ideally Democrat ticket all the way down. But whatever variation of that they need to do, when my district shows up, Democrats win. And so I want all of my folks to turn out.
There we go. All right, Kimberly, any final thoughts? Go ahead, Kim.
I'm sorry, all I can hear is my baby screaming right now. I don't know if you guys can hear him too.
I wasn't sure whose baby it was. I wasn't going to mention it, but yeah, no.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
We can.
Can you hear me now? I mean, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Madam Vice President is a soror of mine. We're all, I like to
we
show.
almost made it through an entire episode without that being noted. That was when I get Vice President Harris in the house, okay, you all are going to be very happy about it. And I'm just showing that I am an AKA. And it's so wonderful that an AKA is going to be president. Thank you so much. Was there a question in there?
I just wanted her to know, I just wanted her to know, you know what I'm saying? That, that I'm special.
Yeah.
Because of Madam Vice President Harris.
Thank you, Representative Burke, for all you do. And hopefully I'll run into you again at Good Food Co-op sometime.
Yes, absolutely. I look forward to meeting your next little one too, Chris. And thank you all so much for having me tonight.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. I think I've got a quick call to action. Folks, thanks both of our guests tonight. Representative Burke, always appreciate her sense of strategy and kind of realistic, take on what can get done in Frankfort. I think for somebody who's, hasn't been there that long, she's got a really great sense of how things do get done and don't get done, largely don't get done. But great to have her time and her thoughts about abortion and what's happening there. So the other guest, of course, Aaron Currin, running in Northern Kentucky. Kudos to him, and I hope folks check out his website and help him out, because that is one of those districts that absolutely could be picked up. And it sounds like he's running a smart campaign, working really hard, taking just a bit of time off the doors this evening to come and chat with us. So let's make it worth his while. Colonels, will you can go make a small dollar donation, help support his efforts to fund that grassroots campaign for that state house district in Northern Kentucky. All right, and then I think we're just I got a really important call to action, right? And then our call to action, we're gonna encourage everyone to do something. It's 27 days out. You do not want to stand on the sidelines for this election. There's too many big issues at stake, and again, we're the Colonels of Truth, so we can't lie to you folks. Kentucky is probably not going to go for Kamala. We should all go out and vote for what we want for sure. But this is a tough state, right? But there's a lot of things that are on the ballot that we absolutely can win, and I think that is rejecting Amendment 2, rejecting the voucher scheme. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, go do it. You're going to learn a lot from Josh Cohen, like really super informative. His book, The Privateers, you can check that book out, to learn more about how vouchers are a failed, culture war issue that we should be rejecting in our state. And then, as we just heard from Representative Burke, they're really important pickups. We're focusing our time and energy on a couple where the races, that we have endorsed. So we've endorsed Adam Moore. We concur. Kentucky deserves more in the 45th. And then we've endorsed Representative Sherilyn Stevenson in her reelection race in the 88th. So we're going to be doing targeted canvassing starting this Saturday. This Saturday, you can come and knock doors with us. You can sign up on our web form, and we'll let you know the details of when and where. But I think we're looking at an afternoon canvass, 1 to 4, and likely in the 88th, certainly the 88th or the 45th. But we need to cut that turf, and we'll let you know. So that's one way to help out. 27 days. Do something every single week, whether it's a calling shift, a canvassing shift. Do something every single week between now. You're going to feel a lot better. Obsessing about polls does not make anyone feel good. Reading every bit of political news that comes your way, not necessarily insightful, but actually doing something to talk to voters, get them mobilized, get them out there. That's going to make a difference. So we've got a sign-up form that we will put right now in the chat. Annabel, I think, has got it there from our call to action. And you can sign up and get to work and do something that matters.
And if it's been a while since you've went out and talked to people about politics instead of on Facebook and social media, people tend to be a little bit bitey on social media, but face to face, not so much. So get out there, come help us knock doors and talk to folks. And typically, face to face, they're not too bad, but just in case you're still in like social media brain, like people.
That's a really important point, and I think I'm sure Kimberly, she's a long time field organizer. She's done a ton of doors. She knows the truth. And I will say this: I think I love canvassing. I think having this one-on-one conversations with people is really powerful, and it can be really inspiring. If you even if you don't really agree, it's like having a conversation about politics in a way that is fairly friendly, right? Because for whatever reason, a lot of people will not open the doors. If you're not canvassed, I'm gonna this should not be shocking, but a lot of people don't open the doors, and a lot of times those people are home. They just don't want to talk to you. That's fine. You go to the next door, you find somebody who will open the door, and you'll have a nice chat. And the thing about canvassing for Progress Kentucky is they don't really know where you're coming from. If you show up with the Bashir for Kentucky button, they know who you are, and they might sometimes they like you and sometimes they don't like you, but they know, right? Whereas Progress Kentucky, I don't really know what that means. Hey, talking about the election. You've been thinking about the election yet? And people Oh yeah, I can't avoid it. Right. Cool. Well, we wanted to talk about Amendment 2. And people are like, oh, what's Amendment 2? Right. Or like, so you kind of get them into a conversation about just the concept of a democracy and the concept of this, public schools and where our tax dollars should go. And then like, okay, we want to talk about a few, members of, people who are on the ballot as well that you might not have heard about. And it's it's an interesting way to have a conversation, and they can be really productive conversations. I think you should do it. I think you should give it a try. Use that form right there. Click on that form, fill it out, join us. A shift a week between now and November 5th, which is just 27 days away. People, you believe that? Crazy.
It's scary. It's scary. I've got a lot of doors left tonight.
Chris is like, I got to get off this show because I got to go knock doors. You can't go right now. It's too late. You can't go knock on doors after 8.
Yeah, no, it's too late.
Exactly. You don't want to do that. And everybody knows who you are now, right?
I did knock onto a couple of students' doors, so I'm like, well, you already know who I am, so.
Don't you know who I am? That's all you gotta say.
Chris, can be, you might have met him at a lot of different places, right? Yeah. Oh, you might remember me from being on the ballot another time earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you remember me from the internet show I do every once in a while. Maybe you bought my chocolate at a farmer's market. There's a lot of ways people could interact with Chris Priest.
Yeah,
a man of many, many skills.
And a lot of people around here know my yard and not necessarily me, because my wife has just turned it into this beautiful yard, and people will randomly just slow drive past our house just to look at it. So occasionally I'll be like, that yard behind Dairy Queen? That's mine.
Nice. You got a pretty big yard sign in your yard, I hope?
Yes. I'll be getting my yard signs Friday. So that will be up.
Do you all have the Kentuckians for Harris wall signs?
I'm going to go to the Fayette County Democratic Party tomorrow. There's an XCOM meeting. And I will pick up my sign there. I could only start putting them up like 4 days ago, because my HOA has got a very hard and fast, only 1 month before the election.
Same as the city of Berea.
Yeah,
it's over here too. This apartment complex. So, just want to say tonight was like a wonderful show, and also to let you all know that my concussion therapist that I go to, once a week. For memorization skills and stuff. And some of my assignments every week have been based upon canvassing, because I told her I didn't feel quite comfortable because I may forget stuff. Like I normally can roll stuff off, and I'll be like, 33.2% of the people say, and I'm getting there, but not yet. So every week she has me to do something. So this week coming up, my assignment is to go further and put some data with 10 things of Vice President Harris's policies.
All right.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It's helping me. And, if I can go out there and canvass for at least one day, I would be very, very happy, because that's who I am,
Yeah.
That's who I am.
Awesome.
That's exciting for me. And it's been great with the internet tonight, right?
It's been a remarkable improvement. We still a little bit of a lag every once in a while. You did cut off Chris pretty intensely, but
Chris, I am so sorry, because I love you. Unlike other people on here, but
those who will go you pretty much told everyone else that you love them, so I guess it must be me. All right, that's cool. Whatever, I'll handle it.
You're my little brother. I love you, man. I love you, man. It was a great show tonight. And I also just want to say, on behalf of Progress Kentucky, to anyone that has, family, friends that live in Florida, and to those that live in Florida that may look at us, our prayers and our positive energy of thoughts are going towards you, because we know that this is a very hard time for you, and we have not forgotten you. And I guess you want me to close now, Mr. Aaron?
Please do.
Yes, sir. I surely will. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement. I was trying to remember that. CAVE. And we're also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is always to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. So next week's show, we're very excited. We will be joined by Erica Hancock. She's running for the 57th District, Frankfurt's House District, to succeed the retiring Derek Graham in just 27 days. Production of this episode 181 was by our own Woman of the Year, Annabel Nagel. And Nate Orshan, he wrote and performed our theme song. I know you all are like jamming to it every week, but you can find more information and music on, everybody say it with me, natosongs.com. That's Nato songs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcast and our show notes are always available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. And hey, when you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. Logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. Please share. We're getting to the end of the race, and everybody needs to know all of these wonderful things that's going on in Frankfurt and also all around this state. So make sure to share this, and we will see you next week at the same time, same channel. Have a great rest of your week.